people online. There are more people online than there are here. So we have to be, we also need to pay attention to those who are online as it relates to that. So we could do a quick ask for a hand raise online. We are prepared to answer the questions as they are on the ballot, on the call. We're prepared for that with the people online, but anything like this that comes up is going to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench in it, just so you understand. We'll do the best we can with it.
All right, then, although that it was unanimous within this room, we need to poll those at home and ask those at home if there would be a show of hands, please, of those who want that whole petition that we just read.
Are people raising their virtual hands?
Yes, we're up to 38.
So how many people are in this room?
I counted 30 last time, so that might be.
So that's
Well, it carries.
Bill, there's enough online that it carries.
45 on that.
You've got enough votes
That it passed.
That it passed, yes.
Hearing that, I'm going to ask one of the petitioners, either Mark or Brett, to have 5 minutes, please.
Thanks, Bill. I'm not sure where I'm supposed to look, but thanks everyone for coming out tonight, and for those of you online. The petition that was put forward was to allow more voter access to the residents of North Stonington, to enhance participation, and basically to allow the town to select the whole board for the Board of Selectmen. There were some questions online of why now, why is this important? The reason it went forward now is we knew there was some town meetings coming up. We wanted to condense that so it wouldn't have to be on its own meeting, that other items could be taken up at the same meeting. And it is an election year. So in the past, back in 2015, actually, Mr. Ricker put a petition in to get rid of the bump down from the loser of the first selectmen's race gets bumped down to the selectmen's race. Mr. Ricker put that petition in 2015 in September. Once that came out, there was concerns about confusion because the candidates were already selected for that upcoming election. So Mr. Ricker suggested at the town meeting that people vote no against that. So that actually got voted down, and then it was brought back up in March of 2016. And it was voted on at a town meeting to get rid of the drop-down measure, which is part of our general statute. So in doing that, I did some more research, and there are 60 unchartered towns in Connecticut. 5 of them, only 5 of them have ever changed their ordinances to adjust voting. So we are one of those 5. We are the only one of those 5 that does not address the voting for the 2 regular selectmen. Even in a legal opinion that our town got prior, they referenced these 2 towns as why it would be legal for North Stonington to change that back then. This is something we probably should have looked at back then, but we did not, and that's why it was brought forward. To avoid any confusion, because the call didn't say that, this does not allow for a majority rule. So there would not be allowed to be 3 selectmen from one party on the Board of Selectmen. What it does give you is the access and the rights to vote for all 3 members. So you get 1 vote for first selectman and then 2 votes for selectman in each category. It would put us consistent with the other towns that got rid of the drop-down bump rule and give our town more rights. Like I said, we've seen more increase in people coming forward to serve, and we'd like to continue that. It would allow more independent and unaffiliated members to run and have more support from the general population. And it ultimately, it would give everyone their voice being heard. I can't see a reason not to move this forward, and I hope everyone out there votes for this to move forward and a yes vote. Thank you.
Bill. Good, before you open it up. Comment before you open it up.
Just for the benefit of those who are unfamiliar with how the town operates, this was, there's 7 questions on this tonight. This was petitioned by people in town to put on here. The rest of these came through the regular Board of Selectmen process, through Board of Finance, some of these, but this was something that people in town signed a petition and decided they wanted to bring in front for the voters. So I don't have a comment on it at this time, but I just wanted to make the clarification.
I'll start with people in this room. If 2 wish to stand up, Lisa, are you in?
I like your shirt though.
Thank you.
I signed the petition and I was happy to sign it. This has bothered me since 2015. If you recall, there were 2 candidates for the first elected seat in 2015. And there were 3 to fill the next 2 seats.
Can you speak up, please?
Should I start over?
You can take off your mask, but you can speak up.
Did everybody hear me so far?
Yes.
Okay, so in 2015, I think it was 2015, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were 3 candidates for the 2 remaining seats on the Board of Selectmen. And there was only 1 vote allowed for those 2 seats out of the 3 candidates, and I would have really liked to have voted for 2. And it didn't make any sense to me back then, it still doesn't make any sense to me now, so it makes good sense to me to pass this petition, to approve it. I had also noticed on different boards, there were sometimes there were 3 seats to fill and you could go for 1, or, there was different boards. But anyway, I'm not going that way. I should write things down before I speak. That's it.
If we can have whoever's speaking stand right about here, so we can see you on this camera. Thank you.
Jim Aldrich, I'm a supporter of the amendment as is, but my question is it right or legal to change the petition at the meeting that is being voted on, since it was publicized and advertised differently?
We had this discussion, I think at the last meeting, with regards to making a change like that different than was advertised. We do have the town attorney here to give an opinion on that. Nick, I assume if it were not okay for us to have changed the question, you would have spoken up when we did change the question.
Right.
So it is legal for us to have changed the question.
The majority of the question, the majority of the extra material just states the law, which is that 9-167 must be incorporated into the decision of the vote.
Thank you.
I'm now going to ask for 2 people in their homes to signify by raising your hand. There is an icon at the bottom that would indicate that, and we will choose 2 of those folks. How do we do it?
Brian Grafton, you are unmuted to talk. If you just unmute.
2 minutes, please, Brian.
Yeah, I was just going to ask the question that you just answered. That's all right. As far as the petition goes, yes, I think we ought to just follow through if you want to really improve the town. Thanks. Bye-bye.
You.
Bill, I have one more. Tula Balstracci, you are allowed to talk. If you want to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Mic by the computer, Bill.
It's not, it's the by the camera.
Right, yes, we can hear you, Tula.
Um, I have a couple concerns about the petition. When it comes to the way we vote, I think we should err on the side of caution. It's a slippery slope, and we can see this on the national level. Where do we draw the line if we keep changing how we vote? Are we going to do it for other positions? Are we going to change balance boards to minority representation? I think this is something that we need to pump the brakes on. There is voter access. There is the ability for people to participate. You do not need to be endorsed by a party to run. Anyone can petition to be a write-in. So that's not preventing people from running for office. You don't, again, like when you go to the Republican caucus or the Democratic town meeting to be endorsed, if you do not get endorsed, or if you do not want party endorsement, you are free to run on your own. So I am also concerned about minority representation. We could have a board of 2 Democrats and 1 unaffiliated, and the Republicans would not be represented. And I don't think that's fair. I think the way it's designed right now is to have a Democrat endorsed candidate seated, a Republican endorsed candidate seated. I think it's best for the town to have all the players at the table. And I think this should have been a bipartisan effort. This was not. I think what's best for the town is for everyone to work together and come to a solution. So I've gotten a lot of calls and emails about this. There are a lot of people concerned. And I think we kind of need to slow down and really figure out what's best for the town. So at this time, I do not support this petition. Thank you.
Dave McCord.
It's Dave McCord.
Just talk, man. Am I there? You're good. You're good. I have a general comment on this. I'm uncomfortable. We're going to have a referendum, I assume, for the budget in a couple months, and we're going to be voting on these with, say, 50 people here and 80 people online is the total number of votes that we're going to have. I'm really uncomfortable. I don't think it's fair for the people who didn't see it online, didn't talk to somebody.
Hold the mic up closer.
I don't think it's fair for the people who didn't have notice of this to have this voted on today and be part of the regulations for here on out until another petition goes through or whatever happens. That's just my comment in general. And I oppose this for the same reasons that Tula reiterate her comments. Thank you.
Other comments from the floor?
You can take off your mask. Ooh.
I just wanted to say that the town of North Stonington is a town meeting selectment form of government. We're not a referendum form of government where everything needs to go to referendum. This meeting was properly noticed and in the paper and online, and everyone had the opportunity to either be here or log in online. I would encourage that we not put this off to a referendum. Also, I wanted to make it clear that sometimes you have a candidate that is endorsed by more than one party, such as being endorsed by the Democratic Party and being endorsed by the Independent Party. I want to assure everyone that the machines can be programmed not to allow you to vote for the same person twice. You know how with this changes, if this is approved tonight, you'll be allowed to vote for two, and yet you shouldn't be able to vote for the same person under two different party lines. The machines can be programmed to accept only one if the name is repeated on the ballot. But I would encourage that we do act on this tonight.
Thank you. We're accepting two from home.
Joy Simmons, you are recognized. If you just unmute.
Good evening. I apologize. I don't remember the names of people that have spoken. And can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yes.
I do also believe that this is too substantive of an issue to be handled in this manner. I know this is the first time we've done this hybrid type of meeting. Frankly, I have a great desktop set up here. I have my audio as high as it can go. I did not hear half of what was being said. I do understand the attorney present said it was okay to make a change to the item 1, allowing the reading of the petition. But given the substance and content, the impact on the citizens of North Stonington, I frankly had to ask people, even with the website and whatnot, it wasn't clear to me what was going on. I sent 2 questions in. Some of it was addressed by prior speakers, but at the end of the day, I agree with, I think the name was Tula. I don't think this is a broken process we have now. I believe we should remain with minority representation because it's a good check and balance, and people's concerns, regardless of party representation, are fully represented. So I feel very uncomfortable this being a first hybrid meeting with not a whole lot of attendance, either in the meeting there itself or on Zoom, to vote on something so critical without taking it to referendum. And as was suggested, at the next referendum regarding our budget, why can't we include this item? That's all I have to suggest.
Thank you. Another person from the home audience.
Sarah Nelson, you are recognized. If you just unmute.
Hi, thanks for the recognition. So I want to thank the petitioners for bringing it forward and appreciate the explanation. I do agree, though, with some of the presenters that this is a very important topic, how we run our government in town, and it feels a bit rushed for myself. You know, it's a 5-minute presentation and then some comments from folks in town. I do think it makes sense to be a referendum item. I'm actually very grateful that this town meeting is hybrid because unfortunately, when there are town meeting votes, married couples with children at home are sort of disadvantaged in the ability to vote because typically only one of them can go out. So when something is sent to referendum, it does allow for voter access to be able to weigh in on a decision. So I do think if this is truly an important issue, which it sounds like it is, and if it is the right path forward, a little bit more time to understand it will bear it out that it is the right thing and that there's nothing that spending a little bit more time on can hurt this issue. In fact, it should only help us understand the truth in front of us a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any member of this audience wishing to speak? I'd like to take, before you speak a second time, I'd like to get people from the audience, home audience, who haven't spoken yet. Are there 2 more, please?
And one more. Stephanie Mastriani, you are recognized. If you just unmute.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. So I want to speak in support of this petition. I think the fabulous thing about it is that it is not taking us into any uncharted waters. This has happened in many other towns. It's completely legal, and it absolutely is no threat to minority representation. This is simply a way for residents to elect the full board that they want to see seated. I think of myself when at the last election, looking at Bob Carlson and Nita Kincaid, and thinking that both would do an incredible job serving on the Board of Selectmen. I would have liked to be able to vote for both Bob and Nita as my selectmen. Because I'm only allowed one vote, I could only vote for one of them. And that's fine if there are only two candidates. However, if there are more than two candidates, I think it's a great idea to allow increased voter access and allow each resident to choose what that Board of Selectmen should look like. Of course, as long as it stays in line with minority representation, then everything works out and it's completely legal. This is just a way to increase access. I also think that it's important to note that minority representation does not guarantee a seat of the minority party. It doesn't guarantee that there's a Republican and a Democrat seated. It just means that no more than two from a particular party can be seated. So I think we need to be careful when we're saying that this threatens minority representation, that we really check the definition, because it doesn't. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who has not spoken that wishes to? Connie Garati?
Are there others?
Are there others in the home audience? If there are any other people in the home audience that wish to speak, please raise your hand. You would be next.
Thank you.
Loudly.
Okay. The concern that I have with what's been said so far is about the minority representation. The concern is we could have someone running as a minority take the seat, and as soon as they get elected, they go and change their party to the party they really want to be in, which I think is not fair to any of the electors in this town.
Thank you. One more from the home audience. Go ahead, please.
Jennifer Dayton, you are recognized. If you just unmute.
Thank you very much for the time tonight. I won't repeat comments from previous speakers. I will just say that I am very uncomfortable with the attendance in this meeting to vote on an issue of substance. It's nobody's fault. Everyone got proper notice. It just turned out the way it did. I don't feel that it would accurately reflect the majority view in the town of North Stonington, whatever the outcome of tonight's vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any others in the audience? In the home audience?
Anthony Mazzella, you are recognized. If you just unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say I agree with Tula. This seems like something that might not work out as it's being represented. I think it's very important to have at least one Democrat and one Republican, no matter what. Currently, it is working as it is. And if we want to change it, it should be done in a better process, allowing more access to people to participate in the process of changing it. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you. Lisa?
I just want to say, in my mind, this petition has less to do with the candidates who are running and more to do with the voter. When I see 3 candidates up for 2 seats, I want to be able to vote for 2 of them. I feel that the voters should be able to see the candidates on the boards that they wish them to see. Just like what Stephanie said with Bob and Nita, I would have loved to have voted for both Bob and Nita. There were 2 seats, 2 votes, less to do with the candidates, more to do with the voters and voting rights. Thank you.
Anyone from the home audience? There are no hands in the home audience. Brett, 2 minutes.
I just wanted to address the minority representation. As was stated before, minority representation is not guaranteed. It is to make sure that a majority is not taking up the spots. This was passed, the drop-down version was passed at a town meeting. And in history of town meetings, between online and who's present here, it's actually well attended. We have to all congratulate ourselves for coming out, the ones here and the ones online, to be involved. This petition does not change anybody's rights to get seated or to run. It gives you the options to vote for who you want seated there and not violate minority representation. In the process, it was brought up between you go through a caucus or you go through a town meeting. For people that don't know, Republicans in town, we hold a caucus. So all registered Republicans come to caucus and vote on who our endorsed candidates is. Conversely, the Democrats just nominate from their board. So that can range from 5 to 15 people, their board nominees. This gives the residents, the true residents of North Stonington, more options to seat the people that you want to represent you, whether it's Republican, Democrat, or independent or unaffiliated. It doesn't change that. There's no rush for this, but it is an election year, and that's why it's brought forward now. This isn't anything that wasn't done in the past. And just to clarify my initial comments, when I say we are one of the 5 towns that have changed that for unchartered towns, there are numerous charter towns that have this in their charter that you get to vote for the full board. So I don't want anyone thinking that there's only 5 towns that do this. There are multiple towns that have this out of the other 160 that have this in their charter. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more people in the audience, and I'm hearing there are no more. Oh, we have one more. Excuse me, 2 more. After those 2, I'm going to call for a vote. In the sake of time, it is 17 minutes before 7. Go ahead, please.
Dylan Spring, you are recognized. You just unmute.
Hi, I'm just wanting to say that there seems to be so much discussion and confusion here tonight regarding this referendum, this petition. So,
Ellen, can you please speak up louder?
oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Better.
Okay, I'll get closer to this machine then. Okay, here we go. So it seems to be that there's a lot of confusion and discussion around this issue of the petition. And because of that, I believe that would be best served to hold off and have more discussion about this and save this issue for a referendum so we have more time to digest all the information that's been presented. That's all.
Thank you. And one more.
Helen Casada, you are recognized. If you just unmute.
Hi there. I just wanted to say it makes me a little uncomfortable to have, I don't know, I can't see how many people are there or how many are online. So I'm just going by what you've said of 80 people online and 40 people in person. So 120 people in the town that get to make the decision. And I feel like there might be more people who would participate if it wasn't COVID, if maybe they felt comfortable going out to a town meeting during COVID. We have people who aren't tech savvy, who would probably like to attend the meeting from home, but don't know how to log on or weren't unable to log on or put in the wrong email. I don't know. It was a little complicated for me. So I'm just a little concerned that 120 people are going to make this big change. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. For your information here, there are about 40 people present in this room, and we have logged 83 online. Okay. You wish to vote on?
You wish to speak again? Last speaker.
Again, I reiterate that I'm uncomfortable, as seems like quite a few I'm uncomfortable, it seems like quite a few people are, with the number of voters that will make decisions. And it's not just this particular item. And we've got, $60,000 in expenditures for their software. And we've got selling of a major asset in the tanker. We've also got.
Closer to your mouth, please.
I'm sorry. We also have an additional appropriation of $35,000 for radios. And I don't see why we can't just throw them on the budget referendum and vote on them, where we have a real vote, people coming in, this hybrid. I mean, people made a big stink about how the budget was passed last year, which I was not comfortable with either. But it seems like we're getting worse as far as the ability for people to vote for how they feel on issues, particularly ones that could have an adjustment in how the town of North Stonington is represented.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I kept dropping the line. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. We're prepared to vote at this point. The audience at home will be asked to signify your vote. Do you have any further comments to make to that audience, Jim? Okay. Those of you who have pens, proceed with filling out your form. And we have 3 folks coming around to collect the ballots. We're going to move on to the second question in the sake of time. Thank you, Mike. Antoinette,
I do need to vote.
You can read it.
Item number 2. Shall the town of North Stonington adopt the following ordinance? Section 2-3. Required number of signatures for petition. The required number of signatures for a petition will increase to a minimum of 50 in all cases unless more signatures are required per state statute. And for the town clerk to be allowed to publish an abbreviated version of the legal ad regarding the notice of passage of the ordinance.
can I hear a motion to accept that call? Lou Steinbrecher, seconded.
Second.
Your name, please.
Kathy Bond.
Thank you. All in favor, both at home and here in this auditorium, in favor of moving forward with discussion on the question, raise your hand, please. All opposed? I hear a unanimous and 25. We have sufficient numbers voting to move forward to have discussion first. Thank you on this question.
If I could give a little.
Yes, Mike, please.
Thank you, Bill. Just to mention, this is actually a good turnout for a town meeting. I think Brett mentioned it, and Sean also. We elaborate on the fact that this is our form of government, and we often do send things to town meeting rather than referendum, and that's okay because that's how our government functions. So, in the spirit of that, we haven't had a town meeting in a while, and there's been things that have been kind of piling up due to the COVID-19 situation, and this was one of those things, and there's a few of them on this agenda. And this was looking to increase the minimum number of signatures for a petition. Now, currently for a petition, it's only 20 signatures that's required. And I think a long time ago, it might have been harder to get 20 signatures with people less in town and people living further away. And that's not really a hard thing to do. And I just want to, our board voted for this, and we're not opposed to wanting the public to have a voice. I don't want anyone to think that by this ordinance being up for discussion. But petitions can be expensive. Most of the time when there's a petition, it does require the attorney to take a look at it. It requires the process of having a town meeting, which has expense, costs time. We want to have town meetings and we want to encourage petitions because that's the town we live in and that's our government and that's great. We just feel that 50 signatures is maybe a little bit more of a meaningful number to feel confident in the fact that a petition should move forward. So that's all that's up for discussion here. We're not trying to change how we do business. We're not trying to degrade the fact that petitions are important. They are. If the town ever elects to have a charter, they may want to try something different, but this is allowable per state statute, and this is something that the Board of Selectmen has moved forward for your discussion. With that, thank you, Bill.
And I hear a motion on this call, please, for us to have a discussion. Mr. McCord? Dan Smith has seconded.
Dan Spring.
Dan Spring, is that your name, Dan? Can you step forward?
As Mike mentioned, the state statute does allow the town to change it to 50 for petitioning for a town meeting. More signatures are required to petition for a referendum. But also by statute, state statute, is the number 20 signatures. And I think if you look at the bottom of the call, you'll see that 3 people made the decision to send most of these items to referendum. 3 people, the Board of Selectmen. I don't feel it's unreasonable to have 20 people petition for something to go to a town meeting. Whereas if 3 are able to do it, by golly, 20 should be sufficient out of the townspeople to petition something to get on to a town meeting. Thank you.
Is there another person from the audience to speak on this call?
Okay, it's my
Dave McCord speaking.
Dave McCord. It's my name to be unpopular with Sean, I guess. I think that an effort must be made to put a petition together, gather the signatures, to go through the expense of having the attorney review it, and call me a town meeting, the expense and everything that goes into it. So I think 50 people is not an unreasonable amount. I think if you really have an issue that you want to have addressed, you should be able to get 50 people out of the town. And as far as 3 people making the call to put these other items on here, we had a full day of voting to put these people in front of us. These are the people who represent the town, not 20 people. So I don't have any problem with going 50 people. I think it's reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have hands from the home audience.
Sarah Nelson, you are recognized if you just unmute.
Hi, thanks. Dave stole most of my comments, so I'll be very brief. I do think 50 people is reasonable. And to Dave's point, we did a whole election with the whole town to elect officials to make those kind of decisions for us. And we're not leaving the decision to them, right? We're at a town meeting to discuss it. And I do think it's a reasonable number of people. When you can change something for all 5,000 people in the town, 50 people is less than 1% of that town. I think it's a reasonable number. Thank you.
Thank you. Another person from the home audience? None. Nick Mullane?
I got one.
Too late.
Let's not forget that the legislative body is the town meeting. This makes it more difficult to get something there. The statute set a guideline. This makes it more difficult. I ask you to reject it.
Member from the home audience?
Brian Grafton, you are recognized if you just unmute.
Yeah, I think we ought to leave it at the 20 for the reasons that Nick just said. Plus, we're a very small town, and I think if people have enough, if there's 20 people that want to bring something before the town, they should be able to without going out, especially if they live in the backwoods of North Stonington, because it's hard to even know 50 people in the backwoods of North Stonington. I want to leave it at 20 and stop changing the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the audience present? Going to the audience at home. We're calling for a vote. This is a vote on call number 2 regarding section 2.3, the required number of signatures on a petition. Those people at home, please register your vote. And does everyone here have a paper ballot? Is there anyone who does not have a paper ballot?
They all have.
Fill out your paper ballots, please.
Fill out your paper ballot, please. I have a few people in my mind.
Yeah.
She can read the third question.
No, not yet. I want to read the results of question number 1. Have all the ballots been collected for number 2? Does anyone have another ballot in their hand for number 2? The results of the ballot for question number 1, yes, 38, no, 42. The question goes down by 4 votes. The total votes cast were 80 total. Can the town clerk please read call number 3?
Bill, what was the total votes cast on number 1?
80. 38 yes, 42 no.
No, that's just online.
Excuse me?
I need to consult with the registrar.
That was passed to me.
You need this side. Sorry, guys.
There was the other side of the piece of paper, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Bear with me, I'm bound to make mistakes, but will try my best. In-person votes, 10 no, 32 yes, 2 abstentions. Who's adding these up so I don't make a 4th mistake?
I got it.
No, you're not sure if that's, before we assume something.
Online is on one side.
That's what I'm saying. I don't. Let's take a 3-minute recess. Hang on. Yeah, go ahead. Hang on a second.
Taking a recess. I'm only reading what was passed to me.
Excuse me. Yeah, let's go.
I'm going to go on to question number 3. Will the town clerk please read the call?
Question number 3, shall the town of North Stonington approve amendments to the local ordinances 2-60 Municipal Building Committee and 2-76 Finance Board as presented and made available at the town clerk's office at 40 Main Street, North Stonington, Connecticut, and for the town clerk to be allowed to publish an abbreviated version of the legal ad regarding the notice of passage of the amendments.
Can I hear a motion to continue with our discussion on this call? Lou Steinbrecher, second, please. Dave McCord. All in favor of moving forward with this question, raise your hand. All opposed, put your hand down. One opposed. And in the home audience, please.
I have 6 right now. 6 hands up.
For which? For what?
I have 10 hands up.
For yes or no? For yes. We're moving forward with it. Thank you. Motion to accept this call for discussion.
Aye. Aye.
I'll
move it.
Okay, seconded. Discussion, please. Mike, do you want to make comment?
Yes, please. This is, one of them is just a cleanup. That first ordinance that talks about the municipal building committee said hereby established, and there wasn't one established, so just changing it. Second, to shall establish. The second one is to do with the finance board. With regards to the finance board, what we're looking to accomplish here is that the alternates should not be of the same political party. We want to keep with the minority representation, so that way, if there is a Board of Finance member absent, that they have the ability to appoint someone of their own party. If this, the way it reads, the way it is right now, and we ran into this, if the parties, if the alternates were of the same party, if there were someone of minority representation that wanted to have them, wanted to miss a meeting, they wouldn't have somebody of their party that they could appoint in their absence. So this balances the alternates. This also mentions the alternates shall serve 4-year terms. That's already the case. It's just a cleanup of language. We cleaned that up, I think, a couple of years ago. That's really all that there is to this. It's just a matter of balancing the Board of Finance out.
Okay, comments from the audience, please.
Just want to
name
Sean Murphy, Kingswood. This appears to be, number 3 appears to be a question on 2 separate ordinances. Is that correct? There are 2 ordinances being voted on number 3, one being the Municipal Building Committee ordinance and the other being pertaining to the Board of Finance?
Yes, that's correct.
So why are we voting on these together instead of separately? So are you, if anyone is against this, both will have to fail and come back or whatever.
That's the way it's written.
I just want to make sure it's clear to everyone that the 2 are being combined. Very unusual. But I would like to make my comments concerning the Finance Board ordinance. The language that has been presented in here is very confusing. It allows the, first it allows the member that's going to be absent to choose who the alternate candidate or who the alternate member that will be seated. And then it goes to say that it will be to someone at the same party. Well, if I'm a Republican, you're saying that I have to choose a Republican or not. It's not really saying that. But anyway, we have unaffiliated members on the Board of Finance. And we also have, at the current time, I believe, we have a supermajority of Republicans. So with this ordinance, if a Republican is going to be absent, then a Republican has to be seated, which is, and to keep it a simple majority, a supermajority. I think that that is unfair, and that this ordinance needs to be looked at again. There are other towns that have similar ordinances, but it's very clear what the priority is when you're the priority 1, 2, 3 of how you select someone to be an alternate. And I think that this ordinance as presented is very confusing, and it's also unfair in that now if a Republican is going to be not being able to make the meeting, this ordinance says that you still have to maintain that supermajority and pick a Republican. And and it doesn't really take into consideration an unaffiliated or a dependent, but both these
finish the sentence.
two ordinances on one question. If one of them, you don't agree with one of them, the whole question goes down.
Other people in the audience that wish to comment? One.
Donna Brandelli, you are recognized. If you just unmute.
I'm going to keep it quick. The issue that I had also was that there was more than one question in the ability to vote. We would be voting on no on both or yes on both without the ability to segregate.
Thank you. Any more in the home audience? Anyone more here?
I know it's me again.
Please hold it up close.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Choke on it.
I just have a question on the municipal building committee. What, was that when we formed the committee for the school and for the emergency services? Or do we have a permanent building committee?
This seems to be a separate committee that's supposed to exist, and it's just a language cleanup, but yes, it's separate from those other committees.
So do we have a permanent building? We don't actually have it. So what is this change doing?
Instead of it saying that one is established, it's saying that we shall establish one.
Oh, okay.
It's just a language change.
All right, because it's probably a good idea. Thank you.
Carolyn Howell.
Carolyn Howell, Providence, New England. I just want to speak to combining the questions. I have to agree that I don't think it's a good idea necessarily to combine two different questions into one when we're voting in this way. My second point I wanted to make is that I am unaffiliated. I'm currently sitting on the Board of Finance, and I do have a choice of who I can have seated for me when I'm not going to be in a meeting, whether it's Brett, who is a Republican, or Sarah, who I believe is a Democrat now. So I feel comfortable with either one of them. I do feel like I should have a choice, and it might be confusing if there were two Republicans out or two Democrats out, and they only have one of each party to choose from. So maybe we should have 3 alternates with different parties rather than just the 2. Just a thought. But
Bill,
thank you.
Bill, if I could clarify something that I think maybe is got confused by one of the comments.
Go ahead.
The language does not prohibit the Board of Finance member from selecting whoever they would like to select, right? What it does is it makes it so there's an option there for the Board of Finance member that there would be opposite parties as alternates. There's two different things in this question. That the alternates, all it says is the alternates shall not be the same political party. It doesn't tell the Board of Finance member what they can and can't do. It just says the alternates shall not be of the same political party. The other part of it is that if someone leaves, if a vacancy occurs on the Board of Finance alternate, it states that the successor should be of the same political party as the vacating alternate member. And that has not been the case. So it continues this balance on the alternate board. So I just wanted to make sure I provided that clarity. I think there was a little confusion on that.
I see no more hands willing to speak. I see a hand willing to speak. John Murphy.
Nothing in this ordinance prevents two people of the same political party from being elected.
There's a member from our community audience. Go ahead, please.
Ann Egan, you are recognized, just unmute.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that as a member of the Board of Finance, I'm somewhat concerned that we were never approached about this question. And as Carolyn mentioned, we had discussed having a third alternate as a potential to address the issue, but we never had any input on this, so it never came to fruition. And so I really think we should have been consulted before this was brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no more from the except Brett. And except.
I just wanted to state that
Brett Mastriani.
Brett Mastriani, 60 Jeremy Hill Road. I'm against this change right now. I'd be more for looking at 3 alternates. One thing that the public should know is the Board of Finance is not a balanced board. It's a board regulated by minority representation. So the voters, this is another way to limit the actual results in the voters' voice by making it a balanced alternate. Thank you.
Nick Mullane.
I'm going to come from a different angle. I'm tired of this class separation. If a particular member can't make it, I don't see why he can't pick the same party, the other party, or an independent. There's a lot of good people in this town that would be able to share that person's views if necessary, but once you have the discussion, things might change. So why don't we make it a lot more liberal and get everybody involved?
Seeing no more hands wishing to speak in the audience, no more in the home audience. Before you vote, I want to, I don't know where to slip this in, I'm slipping it in now. The results of question number 1. Yes, 70, no, 52. It passes. Question number 2. Yes, 60, no, 55. Did I get it correct? Yes, 60, no, 55. Moving on to call number 4. Can I ask the town clerk to please read the call?
Question number 4. Shall the town sell the 1993 Peterbilt tanker pumper used by the North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company?
Short and sweet. Can I have a motion to proceed with discussion? Dan Spring, seconded by Dave McCord. All in favor of moving the question, raise your hand.
No, we're not moving the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Mistake number 5. To carry on with discussion. Raise your hand, please. Those opposed? One opposed?
11.
Okay, and 11 from me. Yeah, 11 yay to move forward. May I have a motion now to move this question?
No, let's have some discussion first.
Oh, for discussion.
We already did that. So I can talk now if you want to.
That's right.
Bill, I want to thank you for also sanitizing the mic when you're putting it next to the speaker for those on the computer. That's very kind of you for those folks as well.
Read this, please.
Hey, listen, we love you. Thank you for doing this. This is a challenge. On the tanker question, so just for clarity, the tanker was budgeted in last year's budget to be sold this year. Now, I just want to back up a little bit because some folks are saying, well, why we don't need a new tanker. We already approved the new tanker. The tanker's actually, we're receiving it within a month or so. So the tanker's been bought, it's already been voted on, it's already been approved. The sale of this tanker was in the budget to be sold this year. We had some feedback, the Board of Selectmen had some feedback that we should maybe further discuss that because the tanker is a good tanker, and do we really want to sell the tanker? I want to make it clear, the fire company didn't bring this discussion up to keep the tanker. They didn't bring it up. They weren't like advocating, we want more trucks or anything like that. Some people had comments, so we wanted to bring it forward for more discussion. We do recognize the tanker's in good shape. I would mention that there isn't an inside storage location for this tanker currently, the way things are laid out at the fire company. So there's not really space for it where we have it. It would be great if we had a spot, say, up on Casada Hill or in Clark's Falls, or like a secondary location where we could park the tanker and be able to respond to fires a little bit more quickly in a different area of town. I want to mention that we did budget $50,000 in revenue in this year's budget for the sale of the tanker. That doesn't mean we don't expect to possibly get more for the tanker. That's kind of the minimum that we would have put a reserve if we were selling it, so we could get more for the tanker if we were to sell it. And I just want to mention, if we do not sell the tanker, that could result in a supplemental tax bill at the worst case scenario for people because we budgeted the money in this budget to sell the tanker. We really did want to make sure we brought this to the town for more discussion though, because it was brought up in our meetings for discussion to kind of affirm the fact that we are going to sell this tanker. If there's opposition, if it's the will of the people to keep the tanker, then we're here to talk about that. So we would welcome comments on this topic, but just keep in mind the things that I've told you as it relates to, the fact is we don't really have necessarily a spot inside in climate controlled storage for this vehicle right now, without shuffling some things along or making our 3-bay climate controlled or building another facility somewhere else. I just want to bring all those things up for discussion.
Can I first have comments from the community audience? Go ahead.
Donna Brandelli, you are recognized, and just unmute.
I just want to clarify, my understanding is what you're saying is that this was voted on in the previous budget, and now we're voting on it again to see if we still want to keep it in the budget to sell?
That is. Yes, it is accurate, but if I could further explain, I think that based on prior things with trucks as it relates to this, we wanted to just really confirm everyone's interest in this. I think, years ago, we had a forestry truck and there was confusion on that. And we just wanted to make sure that, we have full community buy-in from this.
Chief, I didn't see your hand earlier, I'm sorry.
So going along with the selectmen, again, last year's budget, when it was approved, it was initially planned to sell a truck for $2,000.
Mike, can you take your mask off too, please?
I don't want to be covered for your mic. So the tanker was scheduled to be sold. We had the sale of $50,000 for it. I think that's a stretch. Every vehicle that's left the fire company, the town has sold over the years, you're lucky to get $30,000 to $40,000 for it. No matter the condition of it, it's just what happens. Again, we didn't come forward with wanting to keep the truck. The truck was planned to leave, but the residents brought it up saying, hey, maybe we should think about it. We do live in a town without water. We truck the water to every fire. We did have previous meetings when we talked about replacing this truck, and it was brought up from Mr. Carlson about other departments do have reserve tankers. This would be a good reserve truck. No doubt about it, it is a good truck, and we said it from day one. It's a 30-year-old fire truck. It's not a free truck. Because we own it, it doesn't mean you just park it out back and leave it. You're gonna maintain it, it's gotta be ready to go to a call. Yes, it does have a spot in the building. We can park it out in the back garage. It's not heated or insulated. The project never got completed with heat or insulation in that building. So that it would be a cost to heat and insulate that bay. Again, if the taxpayers wish to keep it, we'll find a home for it. Again, it's up to the taxpayers.
Thank you. Please.
Jim Aldridge. I'm a little concerned about this whole method of going forward with this. Do we get a do-over for everything that we pass or fail? And if so, what are we here for? We voted to get rid of it. We have to follow through with the voters' recommendations were. That was a referendum, largely attended, much more than this. We don't have the right to overrule that referendum at a town meeting just because we want to.
Next person from the community audience.
Brian Grafton, you're recognized, if you just unmute.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the old school, like an old Yankee. We got a truck, it's paid for, it's a pretty decent truck, I believe. It's got not really a lot of miles on it, and I think it can be used for the town for something else. And as far as like the chief just said, they'd find a place for it. I could recommend maybe the rec building would be a good place. I know it would fit in there. I really wouldn't want to sell that truck because I think it's an asset to our town.
Thank you. Next person from the community audience.
Robert Capps, you're recognized, if you just unmute.
Thank you. I get my question is more of a comment. I think it's a little silly to list in public records how much we think we're going to get for the truck, knowing that anybody who's going to bid on it is going to pay that and not anything else, or any more rather. That's it.
Thank you. Comment from the first selectman.
I just would comment, that's what we consider to be kind of the reserve price. I guess our thought was that we were actually going to get more, and it'd be an open bidding process, but thank you for that feedback.
Nick Mullane.
I dare anybody to find a better used vehicle at this time, under these conditions, to make this decision. I ask you to vote yes to keep it.
Are there any other comments from the audience assembled here?
The question's not worded. I got it. Bill. Just to clarify
Nick's comment, he said yes to keep it. If you vote yes, you are voting yes to sell it.
No.
So Nick would like you to vote no to keep it.
Vote no.
He wants us to vote no. Just for the record.
Sorry.
We got you.
Dave McCord.
Again, I know in the budget, we budgeted that this was gonna be sold to partially offset the cost of the new one, which is a considerable amount of money, a lot of money. But I'm reading the specs on this, and it seems like it's a really good truck. It looks really good. It's got really low hours. I don't think it would be a good idea to sell it for even at $50,000, because it's worth a lot more than that, I think. And to have it indoors, even if it's not heated, is probably, the best we can do, but I think we should hang on to it. That's my opinion. And like the chief says, a lot of this stuff, when you put it out to bid for auction, you don't get a heck of a lot of money out of it unless it's somebody from Alaska that really needs one really badly. So I would say no sell.
Thank you.
Seeing Sean Murphy, stand up.
Sean Murphy. I just want to make it clear that the North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company did not ask to keep the truck. The selectmen chose to bring this forward. The North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company also said they do not have a heated facility to store this truck. I'm not real, it just seems odd to me that we could store a tanker truck full of water in an unheated space. That is the option that we have now, and I don't think any fireman here would recommend that. We're saying that if we vote to keep this, we are going to have an additional expense also for the town to insulate the 3-bay garage that it would be put into. So it's not, it's not a freebie at this point. If we want to keep it, it's also going to cost us more money.
Thank you. Seeing no more comments from the audience, we have one more comment, two more comments.
I just would mention,
Mike.
Sean's comments are spot on, except that one of the bays is kind of insulated and separate based on the construction of the 3-bay, if that's where we were to try to keep it. Doesn't mean that we don't need heat, and there will be a following expense probably if we had to keep this truck. Just wanted to clarify.
Two comments from the home audience before we go for a vote.
Donna Brandelli, you're recognized if you just want to unmute.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Sean in what he said, is that there are going to be additional expenses, and those we don't know. And we've seen what happens before when we vote on something with unknown expenses, such as a school. The second thing that I keep hearing repeatedly from the chief and from other members that have spoken is that this is a good truck. It has low mileage, and we could use it again. The problem is, if it was such a good truck with such low mileage, why was it on the chopping block to begin with, and why do we buy a brand new truck? We don't even know the expense of keeping a secondary truck. It's not just insulating a new building, it's the maintenance of the vehicle, it's all the repairs of the vehicle, it's everything that goes along with having a large vehicle like that. But my biggest concern is, if it was such a great truck, as everyone keeps saying, why did we sell it to begin with?
Thank you. Next question from the home audience.
Dan Hagan, you're recognized if you unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
I agree with the last speaker that we shouldn't have bought a new truck if the one we have is still good. The other issue is, it's not just insulated buildings, maintenance. There are also safety checks that it has to go through, inspections it has to go through, new replacement parts that have to be bought every year, and all these expenses add up. If we have a brand new truck, I don't think we need to keep the old one and keep paying all these expenses. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more from the audience? No more. Brett. Mark, did you indicate you wanted to speak?
Okay,
Thank you, Brett Mastriani, 60 Jeremy Hill. I just wanted
please
to,
take down your mask.
I just wanted to ask the selectmen, I know, I watched the selectmen's meeting where this came up, and you guys discussed it a little bit, but one of the letters to you guys was to look at other options for this truck, not just for the fire department. So I know a lot of the conversations just now were regarding the fire company keeping this. Have you guys changed your mind on looking at other options too, or is this, if this gets voted down, does that mean it automatically goes to the fire company, or are you looking at other options?
Thank you. Comment?
I cannot speak for the Board of Selectmen, and we would have, certainly, I guess we could talk about it in a future meeting, but I can tell you my own opinion would be that if this were to be voted down, we would sell the truck like we had budgeted to sell the truck.
Okay, we are proceeding to a vote. Before we do that, I am reading the results of question number 3. Yes, 25, no, 81, with 1 abstention. Yes, 25, no, 81, with 1 abstention. While you're voting, will the town clerk please read the call for question number 5?
Question number 5, shall the town approve the fee schedules for the building department as presented?
Do I have a motion to move forward with discussion? Lou Steinbrecher, and seconded by Sean Murphy. All in favor of having this further discussion, raise your hand, please. All opposed? It's unanimous in the room and the same in the audience. Discussion, please. Mike? Mike?
Yes, I'm going to actually, our planner will speak on this, Juliet Hodge.
I just have a few comments because we've got a packet. I just wanted to explain the chart a little bit. So what I did was take, well, first of all, we haven't raised our building fees. We haven't raised our building fees in 26 years. They're pretty low compared to other towns, and we also don't charge all the little extra things that we put every time we inspect. We could charge every time we have a CO request. We could charge, and we don't charge separately for the education fee. So we get a little bit of a break right off the bat. I just wanted to say that a couple of years ago, I think it was 2017, when we merged, it might have been later than that, when we merged all of the land use boards and commissions and the building department into the land use department. This was done to sort of make everything more efficient, so that each board and commission, like the Conservation Commission, Housing, planning and zoning is a little more standard, but ZBA, we didn't have to have a crystal ball to figure out how much money they might need, and the little office expenses and things like that. So it's worked out incredibly well. We're closing the gap slowly but surely, trying to cover our income, generate enough income to cover the expenses for all of those boards and commissions, and there's 7 of them. EDC is the only one that's separate. So I think we've done a great job at keeping our budgets flat. If not, we've decreased over the years quite a bit. And now we just have contractual increases. But, so what I did, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't going to impact, sort of the average person that comes in to build a shed or put in a pool or something like that. I wanted to make sure that the impact was felt on the larger commercial and industrial projects that do take up a lot of our time to review. And so I did a little analysis. And I would also point out that having the building department in the land use department means that building department has 2 full-time admin people, essentially, in myself and Cheryl. And those expenses were never accounted for in any fee increase because we haven't increased them. So this is a very small increase like I said, we're not here to make money, we're just here to cover the costs, try to close that gap between income and revenue. So I went back last year, actually it was a very busy year, unexpectedly, but one of our busier years, and I sort of just took a look at how much the average permit cost and the median permit cost to take out those outliers of the big solar project and whatnot. And so basically what you're seeing is a very minimal increase between $6 and $16 for your average permit. So I broke out a couple examples. So a $100,000 project is going to see a $138 increase, which is nothing. And then your general permits that come in, a lot of them are under the 3,000, which will only see a $4 increase. But for example, a $5,000 permit will be $6 more. And then for things like the solar project, which do have a bigger impact and a harder review, yes, they'll see on an $11 million project, you'd see an $11,000 increase. So I think it's fair. It makes it so we don't have to extend that cost to all of the taxpayers. You're only extending it to those who are using the service. And we do have added expenses by having a building department covered by our department.
Are there any comments in the community audience? One, go ahead, please.
Kathleen Rinkus, you are recognized if you want to.
Hi, you guys? Thank you for being there. I just have just a quick comment about the meeting in a Zoom fashion. There's one, is it possible to read the question again right as you're putting up the ballot to vote? And, I know you read it in the beginning and then we have discussion, but just read the question one more time right before the vote. And number two, because there's an echo in the auditorium, it seems to me that if sometimes I can't hear people because of the echo, and it almost seems like you have to talk slower so that you can hear through the echo. And I'm sorry, I know these are just housekeeping issues, but I was wondering if possible, if those are possible. And thank you very much.
The answer to your first question is yes. Yes. That was the echo. I can't help the echo in the room at this point. Jim, is there any way to modify it?
Maybe for the next meeting.
For the next meeting. Thank you for your comment. Sean?
Is there one more person?
I have more in my, I have two more in my.
Okay, one more from the floor.
Robert Capps, you're recognized if you unmute.
Thank you. Following up on the person who just spoke, when you take a motion to have discussion or move the question, there's no means for people online to vote yes or no, or in favor or against. I just wanted you to know that.
Jim?
We're taking over.
We've been doing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Robert. Because we don't have that whole question programmed in, we've been taking a show of hands. It's generally fairly uncontroversial to move a question along. There's really no other direction to go in.
No, I'm not saying that. I just wanted you folks to know that there's no means by which for us to say no. We can only raise our hands. We can't vote no. That's all. I just wanted you to know.
Correct. You can only raise your hands. That's correct.
Thank you. John Murphy.
I just wanted to say a few things about this. I think if you look at this building fees, we are already covering our expenses from the fees of the building official and of the assistant that gets a stipend for assisting the building official. Juliet's time, she may be involved somewhat now, that position was already paid for. You didn't get a raise when you took on the
overseeing the building official. I don't know how you can, because he's, you know, it's by state building code versus, you know, your leadership. He makes decisions based on building code. So you really have to look at those two positions, the assistant and the building official. And we are covering those expenses currently with the fees. If we raise the fees, it's just an additional tax. It's an additional way to discourage people from making improvements to their home, to building a home in town, and it makes a more of a burden for a business that would want to renovate and to add on. And we can't afford to discourage commercial businesses from coming to North Stonington.
Thank you. Juliet?
I would just say it's also the contractors that say it's too low, but there's other overhead that we're not factoring in as well. It's housed in our side too, copier overhead.
Before I move on, and before it confuses your vote, I want to give you the results of question number 4. Question number 4 is, shall the town sell the 1993 Peterbilt tanker pumper used by the North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company? The results are yes, 79, no, 25, 1 abstention. Yes, 79, no, 25, 1 abstention. Nick Mullane.
I basically agree with Sean. We should be not doing anything to deter people from taking out permits. And we shouldn't charge any more than direct charge, not including overhead, and keep the fees as low as possible.
We have 2 comments, or 2 questions rather, from the community audience.
Brian Grafton, you're recognized, you know, you.
Yeah, I'm gonna be against raising any fees for permits, simply because I pay enough taxes in town so I can use my land, and now I'm gonna have to, if it goes through, I'm gonna have to pay extra tax just to do what I want to do with my land, and I think it's terrible. People, it's gonna discourage development. It's gonna discourage a landowner that has land and wants to improve it, but yet he's gonna have to go down and get a permit and pay more, which takes away from his project that's on his land. It directly hits the homeowner and the commercials, developers, and if we want to do any developing in town or bring people here, we gotta make it. We got to make it so they can afford it and not be scared away because we got high prices, and I don't want to keep up with the Joneses.
Thank you. Next comment, please.
Sarah Nelson, you're recognized, you can unmute.
Hi, thanks for the recognition. I do think not updating our fees in the last 2+ decades, it's probably about time. I did review the material provided in the packet, and a lot of the fees in terms of general costs they're pretty reasonable in terms of the actual increase. So I would be in favor of the update. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing only Dave McCord.
We must have a lot to say. My only comment is, one way or another, we're going to pay for the cost of running the department. It's either going to be the users or the taxpayers. And Juliet is telling us that without raising the fees, we will not be covering the costs of running the department. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're always in the red.
So if we're in the red, that means we're subsidizing everybody that's using the building department. with our taxes. So you pay it one way or another. Either we pay it in our taxes or we pay it when we put a new addition on our house. So everybody pays, or the people who are actually using the service pay.
Thank you. Hearing no more comments, I'm calling for the vote. Number 5, shall the town approve the fee schedule for the building department as presented? Fill out your ballots, please. And will the audience raise their hand if they are in favor? And then I'm going to ask the audience to raise their hand if they are opposed. You're raising your hand right now if you are in support of this call.
They're voting right now. They're voting. They're already voting. Yeah, they're already voting. So don't worry, they're good. Yeah.
Oh, they've already voted. I was going to give a chance for those who will know. Okay, keeping it. We are moving to question number 6. Shall the town of North Stony, will the town clerk please read the call?
Question number 6. Shall the town of North Stonington approve an additional appropriation in the amount of $35,000 for the radios to the North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company as recommended by the Board of Finance?
I hear a motion to proceed with discussion. Nick Mullane. You're making a motion to move forward with discussion only. Is that your motion? I understand. We're simply making a motion to approve further discussion. Okay, motion is made. Dan Spring, seconded. Nicole Porter. All in favor, raise your hand, please. All opposed? It's unanimous here. Is there a vote in the?
7 hands up. 8.
Okay. We're moving forward with discussion. I have some discussion, Bill. Mike over here. Yes, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, so this, these next 2 questions were items that the Board of Selectmen moved forward through the additional appropriation process to the Board of Finance, and thus have ended up here at town meeting. For those that are new to the town that are attending, that's the process by which any expenditure that's over $20,000 that's unbudgeted goes through if we're trying to spend that money. If this were to be approved in this venue tonight, this would come from the undesignated fund, which is basically the town's rainy day fund, which has upwards of $3 million in it. The reason that this has been brought forward to you today versus in the budget is a couple of reasons. The one reason is that we have been working diligently on the budget process and are trying our best to mitigate costs to the taxpayer in the budget. And so that was one reason that we felt this was a need that was imminent. It was something that the fire company needs now. And there was no reason not to try to move it forward for an expenditure out of the undesignated fund that you've already been taxed on. So this will not be additional tax to anyone in this fashion. These radios are 15 years old and they cannot get parts for these radios anymore. There is a possibility, and I don't want this to anyone to vote thinking that this is going to happen, but there's a very good possibility that we could receive grant funding for this expenditure based on some of the grants that are out there right now. And this is an expenditure that's been recommended, and certainly the chief is here. So if there's anything that he wants to add, certainly would welcome that, but otherwise, the expenditure is important. The Board of Selectmen is bringing it to you via the Board of Finance as a recommendation tonight, and that's what you're voting on.
Other comments from the floor first, please. Chief, do you want to add anything at this point?
Mike pretty much covered it.
Mike pretty much covered it. Sean Murphy? Excuse me, Sean.
First of all, I want to say I do support the replacement of the radios for the North Langston Volunteer Fire Company. I do not support, however, this question being, or this item being taken out of the budget. Chief Steinhardt asked for this as part of his budget request. And what this sets a bad precedent for taking stuff out of the budget and voting on them separately, and instead of putting them in the budget. To my knowledge, Chief, did you ask for an additional appropriation for this? So the fire company did not ask for an additional appropriation for this year to purchase the radios. I do support them as being part of the budget. I don't think this is sets a very good precedence. It's playing a shell game, pulling things out of the budget request and not presenting them with in the budget. It can be, as the first selectman mentioned, the plan is to take this out of our undesignated fund balance if this were to be approved. We could do the same if it's included in the budget. They can use the undesignated fund balance to fund that portion of the budget, $35,000, that portion of the budget. So it's a shell game that it's being played, and although I support radios, it's a bad precedence to anytime somebody wants to ask for something, they can't do it individually instead of competing with other budget priorities. This sets other people's requests in the budget. It puts them at a disadvantage.
I just want to agree with what Sean said. I think, over the past few years, it seems like this has become the norm instead of the exception. Of sliding stuff out of the budget and going around the back door to get what you want, figuring people won't allow it to go through the budget process. If it's something worthwhile doing, the people will support you. If it's not, they won't. If the referendum is a much to do voting, and these kind of expenditures, including this and the software, should go through the normal process and not some back door.
Thank you. Other comments from the floor? Rep. Mastriani.
In support of this for the fire company, I think they do an amazing job for our town, and I am hoping this is able to be reimbursed out of the relief fund. I think it's important before either one of these next expenditures that the town be aware that there will be an appropriation asked for the covering in utilities for the old middle high school for 298 of at least $100,000. So I think that we asked for that to be disclosed prior to some of these requests for additional appropriation, but I think the residents need to know that.
Nick Mullane.
I'm asking people to report this item, and I believe Sean's comments were correct, and maybe on the next item, Dan Spring can answer why these aren't in the budget, item 6 and 7.
We have 2 comments from the audience.
Donna Brandelli, you're recognized.
I have to say that I agree that the fire department should have appropriate radio and equipment necessary to do their job and to safely do their job. I also agree with Sean and some of the other people that have spoken that this should be something that's put into a referendum and voted within the budget items rather than something that's put forward to 100 people in the town. Secondly, I've done several grant reviews and I've written grants. And you're saying that there's some appropriations coming about and we don't know the restrictions of those appropriations. But if every grant I've ever written, you're not allowed to supplant grant money with something that's already been appropriated within a budget. You may be able to do matching grants, but usually you can't supplant one for the other. So that's the question I also have, or the concern I also have.
May I have the first selectman give a comment before the other speaker?
The understanding which the guidance is coming from Treasury on how specifically the American Rescue Package Relief Funds can be used. It was in some of the discussions that and calls that I have been on, these items were not to have been budgeted items, and that was part of the thinking on this as well. These are not budgeted items, and if we put it into a budget, it's possible we may not see reimbursement on it. But again, I wouldn't want any, as I said clearly in my comments, I wouldn't want anyone to vote for this thinking that there's going to be reimbursement on it. We don't know that. We have some assumptions, but we don't know it. So the situation is the fire company needs radios, and it's a couple of months at least until a budget passes, possibly longer. And this seemed like something that made a lot of sense to the board, which is why it's before you for discussion tonight.
We have two more comments from the community audience.
Sarah Nelson, you are recognized, if you can unmute.
Hi, thank you. Just while I can, I just want to say, Bill Ricker, I think you're doing a great job with this hybrid model, and I do appreciate that my mic is sanitized. So thank you for that. I just want to say that I do very much support this this money for the radios. This is a one-time expense, so it makes sense that if it can be covered reasonably by the undesignated fund, that it should, and it shouldn't go into the regular budget, which would increase potentially the budget that needs to be taxed. And so this by keeping it in the, regardless of whether we get reimbursed for it or not, we have a healthy undesignated fund. It should be paid as a one-time expense. This is basic safety. Our firefighters need to feel like they have what they need when they run into the homes of the people that they're trying to protect. And so I'm very supportive of this, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to it.
Thank you. One more comment from the community audience.
Donna Brandelli, you are recognized. Can I do?
I just was trying to finish off what I had said before. I just wanted to make sure that we understand that, as you said, that this may not happen with the grant, but if we appropriate the money now, we also may not have the ability to request the refund or the appropriations from the state later on.
Thank you. John Murphy.
Just wanted to clarify one thing that Brett, or expand on something that Brett said. Here we are tonight to decide whether to use undesignated fund balance to fund those items now. What we don't have on the agenda is we know we're going to have a $100,000 plus unfunded expense that we're going to be, it's going to come back to another town meeting before the end of the fiscal year. I think it's between $100,000 and $150,000 for the school building, the utilities and the maintenance expenses. So here we are voting on something tonight before the more critical item. Also wanted to say this is not a one-time item. Capital items get put on a capital replacement list. These radios are going to need replaced in the years to come.
just like a fire truck or anything else that gets put on a replacement schedule. We are actually underfunding our capital expenditures. We artificially lower them by doing things like this, funding them outside of the budget process. I don't think that the Board of Finance has even looked at the following year's capital. We're going to have a big spike. This is an artificial low because we're taking things out of the budget. And next year, we're going to have a spike in the capital account. We need to average out these capital expenditures, create a capital expenditure fund. So we fund an even amount, probably it takes about $550,000 in capital investment for this town to be on the replacement schedule.
Time.
We're ignoring that schedule, and this is not a one-time expense.
Do we have any from the community audience?
Go ahead, please.
Sarah Nelson, you're recognized. You can unmute.
I just want to see if I can speak as many times as Mr. Murphy tonight. So I just want to say that I don't disagree that we do have to address capital holistically. The Board of Selectmen has really tried to do that. And there hasn't quite been the appetite, to raise taxes to the level where that is sustainable. For this one appropriation that was for radios that are 15 years old. So that would give you an inkling of the last time that we bought these radios. This is not, in my opinion, the hill to die on. This should be safety for our volunteer emergency services organization should be first. I'm more than happy to continue the conversation about appropriately funding our capital at future meetings. But this is really important for our firemen and our firefighters. And I really think we should, it's a basic common sense thing to approve tonight.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe Casado, Moyasset Road. I'm looking at this at the other side of the coin as far as having politics dictate the safety of our firemen. It's a one-time appropriation. Yes, I agree with Sean saying about putting in the budget. But are you really going to sacrifice the political agendas here tonight for the safety of your firemen? Are we going to really make an example of that? I say support the $35,000 and fix the budgeting process properly instead of making us an example of it for the whole town. Support this expenditure. It's a need. They're 15 years old. Hello, where you guys been? How many people have things that are 15 years old in their house? A car, a tractor. These are safety for the firemen. I understand the concern about the politics behind all this and the budgeting process. But for safety for the guys that come save you in the time of need, spend the money, get it done, move on.
Thank you. Little comment, my marriage is more than 15 years old. I don't plan on a replacement anytime soon.
Well, you may be surprised later tonight. There's two that vote on that one. I think Donna made a good point, as far as grant writing goes. I work for the municipality and our fire department replaced radios about every 3 or 4 years, and we've never paid a nickel for them. But there are a lot of grants out there that I'm not sure we go after them all. The other thing is, okay, so if we want to fully fund our capital requirements, we have to be willing to pay higher taxes to put that money in there. That's the question. I mean, do you guys go, okay, we don't want to fund any capital, or do you go, okay, we can only raise taxes by a certain amount? I'm guessing it's the second. So there's no free lunch out there. If you want to say it's $150,000 a year that it's going to cost us to catch up on our capital needs, we need to budget $150,000 and then pass the budget. But if we put that out there and the budget fails, we're back to where we started, which is how we've run the town for the last, since I've been alive. But I think we need to approve these radios now 15 years is way out of date. And I think they need them for the safety of the fire people, and I appreciate all the work that they do.
Thank you. Hearing no more from either just a minute, Dan Spring.
Dan Spring, Wyosset, and Chair of the Board of Finance. In bringing this particular call forward, the Board of Finance unanimously voted in favor of placing this as an appropriation. It is a one-time expenditure. It's not something that's intended to be carried the following year or the year after that, or possibly even for the next 3 or 4 years. So calling it a shell game is a bit of a stretch. So we've gone through much deliberation. I think we've looked at all options relative to this expenditure, and also feel that there's a high probability that through the relief package that this particular appropriation not being budgeted can be reimbursed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm calling for the vote at this point. The question is, question number 6, shall the town of North Stonington approve an additional appropriation in the amount of $35,000 for the radios for the North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company as recommended by the Board of Finance? You can vote now. While you're voting, I will give you the results of question number 5. I'm holding off because I don't want you to be confused with this vote. Is there anyone who has not voted on this? Raise your hand. Okay, we're still collecting, but you've all voted, okay? What? You can collect mine, yes.
Thank you.
Question number 5 was, shall the town approve the fee schedule for the building department as presented? Yes, 75. No, 29. Abstention, 1. You are now voting on number 6. Will the town clerk please read the call for number 7?
Question number 7, shall the town approve an additional appropriation in the amount of $60,325 for financial software as recommended by the Board of Finance?
Is there a comment from the first selectman? 5 short minutes.
I will keep it
Shorter than that. I don't think I'm going to fool myself and think there's a lot of support for this in this room or even online. I feel that people don't think that this is something that's important. I'm going to try to tell you why, but it is your decision. Back last year, the school, the Board of Education, their software was sunsetted and they had to get new software to run their school. At that time, Learn did a bidding process and went through a competitive process to select a new software for multiple schools that would be interested in this particular software, Infinite Visions. And our school went on with it, and basically they've had success with it. The town is currently running off QuickBooks, which many people are familiar with, and certainly QuickBooks, I use it for my own business, is not a software that's inadequate. But I can tell you, sitting in the lead person's seat in North Stonington, that there's a lot of work that goes on between the school and the town in an attempt to make sure that we are reconciled with one another, that our reporting is accurate for auditing. It takes a lot of time, and it's taking a lot more time than it needs to without this software. Now, I understand the cost of this software may seem like a lot, but for those who are operating large or familiar with large organizations, a $60,000 price tag for software is not out of the ordinary. And furthermore, this cost actually includes the 1-year fee, which is around $1,500, which is very reasonable for this software. In your packet, in the packet that everyone has, it talks about the efficiencies that this software will bring to the town. I should mention the town doesn't have human resources like a lot of businesses do. I mean, we obviously do our best with the team that we have, and we all pinch hit on different ways of that. But we don't have like a software that's like a portal for some of you who might be in the business world that have intranets, or, you know, we don't have that kind of thing. This software is going to bring some of that to North Stonington. It's an upgrade. We're bringing it forward to you now because in order to implement this for January 1st, we felt there's a lot of work that's going to go into the training and the implementation of this software. We would like to get it approved now so we can start that process. We also, again, just like the last appropriation, brought it forward because we were trying to alleviate the tax burden. We've had a very challenging budget process this year, as has been kind of alluded to in a few different comments and discussions. So this is something that we felt, because we want to implement it next year, and because in order to do that, we need to buy it sooner than later, we're bringing it forward for this consideration right now. I feel that this is something that's very important for the town to consider, and for a lot of reasons I can try to articulate with questions that you might have, but I think it certainly warrants consideration, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Are there comments from the audience present?
Okay, Sarah, I think I'm going to beat you. I'm on the Board of Ed, and we had to get new software last year. And it was a significant, I can't remember the number, Mike, but it was, we had an additional appropriation for that. It was how many hundreds of thousands of dollars? It was a lot of money.
It was a lot.
It was an awful lot of money. This is a much lower cost to the town because the school has it. They'll be going on our license. They'll be doing an addition off of our license from the school. And good software saves an enormous amount of time and effort by the people who work in the town. It also will give you a lot better visibility of costs and how the town's being run. I know it's $60,000, but good, you know, some of the softwares that are out there for municipalities are $1 million to buy, and a huge cost each year. This is a very low user fee each year. I think in the long run, it will save the town a lot of money. It's hard to say that, to represent that now, but I think in the long run, it will save the town a lot of money. So I'm for it. The rest of the Board of Selectmen, do you all think it's a good idea? So we've got all three in approval. So that's my opinion, and I hope people vote to approve it. Thank you.
Again, I'm not opposed to software, I'm not opposed to radios, I'm not opposed to a lot of things. I'm opposed to doing things the wrong way. There's a budget process where the entire town votes instead of 100 people. We need to go through the right channels to get the right result. This backdoor deal doesn't work. It just creates problems, and it creates a precedent that we don't want to get into.
There is no one from the, oh, there is one. Just a minute, Sean.
Brian Grafton, you are recognized. You can unmute.
Yeah, I understand. We have a system in the town that's already paid for, and the people are using it, and it might be a little bit difficult, might take a little more time, but it's working. And I'm definitely a person that says if it don't fix what ain't broke. We haven't voted on our budget yet this year. We don't know what that's going to bring us. We could just kind of guess. We all had revals. I think we got to hold off on this spending until till we see what the budget's gonna bring and the mill rate's gonna bring to the people of North Stonington. So I'm gonna vote no.
Thank you.
Sean Murphy. I just wanted to state that I'm quite familiar with the QuickBooks software that we're using now. I'm familiar with the reconciliation process with the Board of Ed. At one time, there was major difficulties reconciled with the Board of Ed. It came down to mostly a communication problem. We have opened up communication much better with the schools, and they have a much better software project on their end that they maintain and have a much better chance of getting a number reconciled with the town. The auditor has nothing but praise for our audits. And did not state anything, and has actually said to the contrary, that we were improving on this reconciliation process from past years. This is part of the shell game. If you're going to consider it, it should be considered with the budget. By leaving it out, it's artificially putting the capital account lower next year.
Thank you. One.
Three.
There are 3 comments from the community audience.
Jennifer Dayton, you are recognized. You can unmute.
Thank you very much. I've served on a Board of Education. I understand the business case and I understand the timing. I think it's critical that we modernize our systems in the town, and I fully support this expenditure. Thanks.
Thank you. Next community audience.
Donna Brandelli, you are recognized. You can unmute.
I agree with some of your in-person speakers, and I also agree with Brian Rathbun in that it is working right now, which is what we're concerned with right now. And we are going to have a budget referendum soon, or a budget vote soon, that an amount this high can wait a couple months until the budget comes through so that the entire town can vote on it. I don't think that 100 people, again, should be voting on something this large, no matter how much somebody may want it. If we have something that currently works, then we should continue using it and allow the town to decide whether they want to appropriate this much money, not just 100 people.
Thank you. We have one more person in the community audience. Is there anyone in our present audience?
Sarah Nelson, you are recognized. You can unmute.
Hi, thank you. So an appropriation that then goes to town meeting is a normal process. It's in our state statutes for how to govern our finances. So I just want to make sure that's clear that choosing to send something to an appropriation and then a town meeting is actually normal. This is an investment in our municipal government. We are receiving the benefit of the recent license purchases from the Board of Ed. So there's a benefit in terms of timing for a couple reasons. There's a benefit in terms of timing to do it now so that it's actually in place and usable for the budget cycle next year. It allows us to remove other things out of our budget, like the OpenGov system, and it is a decent investment from a one-time cost, but it is also a reasonable ongoing cost to manage within the budget going forward. So again, it's a one-time cost that's an investment in our municipal government, and it will allow our government to run more smoothly, saving time for our town's employees to focus on other things that they'll need to focus on and really be able to support the town in other ways.
Thank you. There's 2 more comments from the community audience. Please don't repeat prior comments that have been made.
Todd Howard, you are recognized. If you can unmute.
Hi, yes. While I'm in favor of new software, I think the timing and the way we're doing it's wrong. I think it should go through a budget, but I think with the economy in the country and in our state due to the pandemic that's going on, I don't think this is the right time for this kind of expenditure. If we have a system that's working, at least for the short term until the economy gets going better, I think we can still stay with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Donald Randelli, you are recognized. If you can unmute.
And just to follow up, Sarah states that the open.gov can be gotten rid of if you go to this new system. So then the question is, what is the actual total savings that we're getting? If we're going to be paying $1,500 a year for an ongoing license or accessibility to this software, what is the money that we're saving if we're getting rid of the open.gov? And on top of that, open.gov has just been implemented not that long ago. What was the total expenditure for that particular software that we're now getting rid of?
The savings is $13,000 a year, so that will actually be removed. This isn't exactly like OpenGov, but we can produce reports. Basically, there wasn't a lot of favorability from a lot of people on OpenGov, though we like it at town. We're trying to react to, the public and some of the players that have interest in the software. As far as the implementation for it, actually, it was not very expensive. I don't have the number, but it was certainly nothing to this magnitude to implement OpenGov. It was maybe it was 16,000 or something the first year we got it. So it was a smaller amount. And that included the normal every year fee.
Go ahead.
Hi again. I agree with
Dave
everything.
McCord.
Dave McCord from North Stonington. I agree with everything that Sarah said as far as keeping up with the world and updating our software. You can do everything that you need to do in the town on paper, because I did it 40 years ago. But it isn't the most efficient way to do it. You don't have, and this is really, from what I gather, it's not once in a lifetime, but it's a special deal that the software company is giving this time, and that's the reason. Everybody's shaking their head up here. Do you guys want to comment on the fact that we would be better off with this new software? Because it would make it a lot easier if the people who are going to use it could
I don't have any problem with
have any input on
if the admin, Christine, you want to comment on the software? She'll be probably the primary one using it.
So for us, it's not just financial, it's also human resources. So it's going to be able to tie in a lot of our systems that don't currently communicate and things that we have to manually track through Excel spreadsheets. The product itself is evergreen, so if there's any updates that are done through the company, we're already grandfathered in and we won't have to pay any additional fees for those upgrades to the system. They said they have people that have been with them for over 20 years and haven't had to pay an additional cent for new versions of the program. It's just going to help with a lot of different things. It's going to save a lot of time for us. It is myself and our accounting generalists that handle all of these things. So just help us streamline it. It will be very beneficial on a time and also on just getting the information out to the public, because we know that you guys want to know what's happening on our side. So we want to be able to share that with you, and that's going to help us be able to do that.
I'm just Jim Russell, the IT manager. Just speaking on cost, the yearly cost of $1,500 that's like finding the gold mine, basically, because that's for what this software does. $1,500 a year is, that's something that if I saw for something I was trying to change, I'd run for it, because that cost is very, very small. The initial purchase is probably big, but that yearly cost is, that's a once in a while moment to get. So.
And as far as the way the funds are appropriated, again, everybody's been saying it all day that we are a town meeting form of government, and this is the way appropriations are done. They're presented by the Board of Selectmen at a town meeting, and they're approved or they're not approved. So I don't have any problem with the way that the appropriations are being done. The other issue is, if we put this in the budget for this year, then next year, what do we do? Because, well, you know, how do we do the budgeting next year? If you want to put in all these major items as into your budget rather than additional appropriations, you have a fluctuation of your budget that swings wildly, and it's ununderstandable. So I think this is the correct way to do it. It is a once in 15 year probably appropriation. Thank you.
Don't vote yet. I am reading question number 6. I have the results. Shall the town of North Stonington approve an additional appropriation in the amount of $35,000 for the radio for North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company as recommended by the Board of Finance? Yes, 83, no, 24. Yes, 83, no, 24. You are now voting on question number 7. Question number 7, I repeat, shall the town approve an additional appropriation in the amount of $60,325 for financial software as recommended by the Board of Finance? Please vote. Colburn, would you like to say something? As our...
Can you give me a ride home?
Yes, I can give you a ride home.
I didn't realize it was going to take so long.
Will you vote the way I voted?
I don't know how you voted.
Of course, Colburn. Thank you.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for the tally, if I could just, a couple of comments, or at least just one. Thank you so much to Bill Ricker, our moderator for the evening. Maybe a round of applause for Bill, if that's all right. Keeper, Lisa Mazzella, thank you very much for keeping time for us tonight. Appreciate that. Everybody did a great job. And I think we'll just have the last count and then leave it at that. Thank you, everybody.
On your way out, please say hello to Nick Keppel, our town's attorney, and Trooper Kate, who's leaving us. Wave, Trooper. She is now representing our town. Did you bring up the results?
I gave it. I gave it.
Okay.
This is the first time I know.
How many people are still in our audience?
57? 57?
Wow, very nice.
A lot of people held on, which is good.
57 people are still in our community audience, and almost everybody is still here in our auditorium. It's been 2.5 hours to go through 7 calls. Pretty darn good, even with all my mistakes. Can I bring you back to attention, please? On question number 7. Shall the town approve an additional appropriation in the amount of $60,325 for financial software as recommended by the Board of Finance? Yes, 47, no, 54. Can I make a motion to adjourn? Can I hear a motion to adjourn? Kathy Vaughn, Lou Steinbrecher, second. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? No one's opposed. From the community?
5 yeses.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.